This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Hello, and welcome back to the Curious Kid Podcast. Thanksgiving is next week, so let me remind you that we are raising money for an awesome charity called Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation that supports kids with cancer and their families. You can find details for donating on our Facebook page, but there are things you can do without spending a penny to help us donate to this outstanding charity. For every new Facebook follow, Instagram follow, or 5-star review we get through Thanksgiving Day, we at Curious Kid Podcast will donate $1 to Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation. So if you haven't followed us on Facebook and Instagram, this would be a good time. And if you haven't left a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, please do. It will just take a minute or two of your time.
There are lots of reasons to follow us on social media.
There are. If you follow our Facebook page, you will find out what we are going to get curious about weeks in advance. We also post other awesome things to our Facebook page, like fan mail. Have you sent us an email or left us a message on social media that we haven't read in an episode? If so, you are going to want to check out our Facebook page, because we post fan mail to our Facebook page every Friday for what we call Fan Mail Fridays. Continue reaching out to us. We have replied to all the mail we've received, even though there isn't enough time to read every single message in our episodes.
You should also follow us on Instagram.
That's for sure. The Curious Kid Podcast Instagram account is in great hands. It's my beautiful wife and Olivia's mommy, Heather, that runs our Instagram page, and she does a fantastic job. You can find lots of great posts with pictures of Olivia, and you can usually see what Olivia is up to from day to day with Instagram stories.
Mommy is much better at social media than Daddy.
I'm totally okay with you saying that. Check it out for yourselves by visiting us on Instagram at Curious Kid Podcast. Okay, what are we getting curious about today?
Today, we are getting curious about Thanksgiving.
That's a great idea. Next week for episode 60, we are taking a listener suggestion. So this week, let's get curious about Thanksgiving. I love Thanksgiving. It combines some of my favorite things: football, lots and lots of yummy food, and most importantly, family.
Why do we celebrate Thanksgiving?
Well, interestingly enough, when I was a kid, I was told the story about the first Thanksgiving. But lots of it wasn't true. Today we are going to learn why we celebrate Thanksgiving. Olivia is going to share with you what I used to think, and I'm going to tell you what's really true and what is only a myth. So what's the question of the week?
The question of the week is, what type of meat do we know that the Pilgrims and Indians ate at the first Thanksgiving dinner?
I wonder if it's the obvious answer. Okay, when I was a kid, what did I think about why we celebrate Thanksgiving?
Pilgrims came to North America on a Mayflower. They were looking for religious freedom. Isn't that true?
Not exactly. Most of the people that sailed on the Mayflower were not pilgrims. About 1/3 of them were pilgrims, seeking religious freedom, just like you said. But the other 2/3 came here for a totally different reason. And that reason was money. They came here for the opportunity to make lots of money.
Well, when they arrived in Plymouth, there was nothing there, just lots of trees.
Well, that's not true either. I learned that Plymouth was just wilderness when the Mayflower arrived. But that's not true at all. The Pawtuxet Indians had lived in Plymouth, but many of them were wiped out by disease before the Mayflower arrived in 1621. The Pawtuxet Indians left behind homes and even buried corn and beans that were later eaten by the Pilgrims and other settlers.
Okay, then one of the Indians, Squanto, showed the Pilgrims how to grow corn. The Pilgrims thanked Squanto by inviting him to dinner. That has to be true.
Well, sorry, but no. Squanto did exist. His full name was actually Tisquantum. His story is very different than what many of us have been told. He was kidnapped in 1614 and sent to Europe to be a slave. He was able to escape and make his way back to North America. While in Europe, he learned English. Squanto was part of the Pawtuxet tribe that was wiped out while he was in Europe. When he came back to Plymouth, he was shocked to see that Pilgrims and other settlers were living there, on the land that used to belong to his tribe. Other Indians, called the Wampanoag Indians, also called Plymouth home. He was able to communicate with the Indians and also the settlers because he could speak English. He helped the Indians and settlers make an agreement. The settlers would help the Indians fight another tribe of Indians, and in return, the Indians would help the settlers grow food to eat. They celebrated this agreement by enjoying a feast together.
Then it's true that the Pilgrims invited Squanto to dinner.
Well, no, it's not. Actually, there were many more Indians at the feast than Pilgrims. There is no evidence that Pilgrims actually invited Squanto, though.
We've been celebrating Thanksgiving ever since 1621.
Well, wrong again, buddy. We've only been celebrating Thanksgiving for about 150 years. You wouldn't believe who had the idea to celebrate Thanksgiving. Have you ever heard the nursery rhyme, Mary Had a Little Lamb?
Of course, its fleece was as white as snow.
You got it, that's the one. That poem was published in 1830. It's based on a true story. Mary's full name is Mary Elizabeth Sawyer. She was born in Sterling, Massachusetts in 1806. Well, in 1815, when she was just 9 years old, Mary was helping her daddy with the farm and noticed a sick baby lamb in the family farm that was left by its mother. And guess what she did?
She begged her daddy to keep the sick lamb.
Exactly right. And he agreed. And even though the lamb was very sick, Mary was able to make it better again. The lamb loved Mary because Mary took great care of her.
Let me guess, the lamb followed her wherever she went?
That's right. It's a very sweet story.
It is a sweet story, but what does all this have to do with Thanksgiving?
It has lots to do with Thanksgiving. Mary Elizabeth Sawyer, the lady that wrote Mary Had a Little Lamb, suggested to President Abraham Lincoln that we celebrate Thanksgiving as a national holiday. Lincoln agreed, and we've been celebrating Thanksgiving ever since.
What did the Pilgrims and Indians eat at the feast in 1621?
You're not going to believe this. They ate lots of fish and shellfish. Many historians think that fish made up most of the Thanksgiving meal.
That's strange because we don't eat fish on Thanksgiving.
That's true. I bet many people don't eat fish on Thanksgiving.
We eat turkey. So obviously they ate turkey at the feast.
Maybe, but maybe not. The only meat we know was there was deer meat. That's because the settlers wrote it down, so we have the evidence. It's possible that turkey or even duck may have been eaten, but we don't know for certain.
How about other foods like potatoes and pumpkin pie?
Nope and nope. Potatoes didn't even exist in North America in 1621, so no potatoes were there. Not white potatoes, not sweet potatoes, not mashed potatoes. No potatoes. And about the pumpkin pie, they didn't even have the flour or butter necessary to make pie. Pumpkins may have been eaten during the 3-day feast, but no potatoes and no pie. That we know for sure.
Sounds like we're doing this whole Thanksgiving wrong, Daddy.
What we do today is nothing like what the Pilgrims and Indians did 400 years ago. But it's still a delicious meal, and Thanksgiving still has a special meaning. And we also have the opportunity to tell people what we are thankful for on Thanksgiving, What are you thankful for?
Well, I have a lot of things I'm thankful for. I'm thankful for my house. I'm thankful for friends. I'm thankful for a daddy and mom. I'm thankful for a brother. I'm thankful for my bunny. I'm thankful for my trees. I'm thankful for toys. And I'm thankful for my whole family.
Oh, that's very beautiful, Olivia. Thanks for sharing. I'm thankful for so many things, but more than anything, I'm thankful for my incredible family that I love with all my heart. I'm also thankful for all our amazing listeners. It warms my heart to know that there are lots of people out there that love what Olivia and I do every week and are interested in spending a few minutes listening to us get curious. The more we do this podcast, and the more I get to interact with our incredible listeners, the more this podcast feels like a family. A very special family with curious people from all over the world. We love all of you and thank you for your continuing support. Well, that's a wrap for this week's episode.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's podcast, number 59 on Thanksgiving.
Great job, Olivia. Next week we get curious about cars for a fan of ours from Australia. If you have something you are curious about and you want us to get curious about it in an episode, send us an email to curiouskidpodcast@gmail.com. Please include your name, hometown, and age so we can thank you if we read your email in an episode. Before we go, we want to wish a very happy Thanksgiving to all our listeners. As always, thank you so much for listening and getting curious with us.